here we have our Demi and Percival. Welcome. How do you say this in Portuguese? How do you say 14th? The 14th School of Internet Governance on Zoom. I am trying to speak Portuguese here, and I'd like to ask everybody to be quiet for a minute as I welcome. It's great to see where people are shushing when I ask. So I want to thank you for your collaboration. The collaboration and the contributions you've made to our school throughout the year. The Minister Martinhão, who was very, very helpful. And I know that we have lots of Brazilian students with us. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 here, 5, 6 Brazilians with us today in the room, 7. And of course, many, many who have joined us online. So I'm very grateful for the contribution that Brazil has made, not only as sponsors, but in terms of content and participation. Now, so I'd like to talk today about a particular model, the CGI model. We've talked about multi-stakeholder models, the fact that there needs to be a constant dialogue between the government and the private sector and academia, and the third sector, civil society. But this is not an easy task. We know that the creation of a multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary group is no easy task. And I would like to focus today and thank the Internet Committee of Brazil. I'd like to congratulate them on achieving this over the last 10 years. Demi from Brazil, he's the Vince Cerf of Brazil. He even looks a little bit like him, doesn't he, with that beard and everything. And Percival is a member of the Internet Management Community, the CGI. Demian is the president of NIC and a member of the CGI. Thank you for being with us today. I know that Demi is actually in Lisbon at another series of meetings, so thank you for your time. I would like you to tell us a little bit more about how the CGI is set up and how you have achieved the success over the years of setting up this multi-stakeholder model, which really is a benchmark in the world. It's very successful. And you've managed to sustain it over the time, even with all the changes in governments and technology. CGI is this beacon of internet in Brazil. I don't know which one of you two would like to start. I can start as I have other things to go on. But I'm going to lay things out so Percival can go into more detail later on. I'm going to talk in something that sounds like Spanish, but might be a bit Portuguesey too. We can do a mix, actually. I'm going to do my best anyway. So, the Management Committee was born in 1995 when Brazilian internet was in its early days. We had the .br in use since 1989. It was very important because the national investigation and the Sao Paulo network had already been set up. They've been working for a while. We had lots of BitNet and the HeadNet networks and other ones that made their appearance then disappeared. But we were working with this .br, and in 1991, in February 1991, we started working. That was actually a very important date. It was when everything really started taking off. And at that time, our users were mostly academic, from academia. But we made a distribution beneath the .br umbrella. So we had this BRNet, org, BR, gov, BR, all these different kind of denominations preceding the BR, and the BR was closed at a second level, so only universities could access second level, but no other institutions. And it was clear by the end of 1993 that internet would not be limited to the academic world, and that we needed to find ways of expanding this in a properly organized fashion. Something that we could actually do from academia originally. So we worked together with many other pioneers, the great men of internet in Brazil like Ivan Morcam, Carlos Alfonso. So there was a lot of pressure for the Ministry of Communications to create an organ that would not be regulatory, would not have a power over others, but would provide the direction for this to take. That was the origins of the Management Committee, which was created in 1995. We worked with a lot of native internet or digital natives. And what we did was concentrate the input from different areas, looking at different protocols. And Sergio Beton, who was the telecommunications minister, said that Embratel, which was the telecommunications state telecommunications agency, needed to work with us. And then there was a gradual movement towards different kinds of internet suppliers, services suppliers. And it was in this context that the committee developed its own entity. We had 11 members from different sectors, from suppliers, users, academia, commercial interests, government. All of them were involved in the first design, first setup of the management committee. And there was as yet no direct election of the representatives. That happened a few years later in 2003 when we engineered a transition to our current format. We now have 21 members. 8 are from government entities, and the other are elected by civil society committees and academics, elected by academia. So we had lots of issues because all the services were free. .br was it was a win-win situation for us at the time. And then there was a .NIC, and it became clear with the appearance on scene of the Department of Trade from the United States that things were going to change and become more self-sustainable network solutions. So people started being charged, and we started also to have costs which we could charge. And at the begin with, we had a major surplus, which enabled the committee to employ and increase its resources. And we set up our own registries, our own IPs, and then we started looking at security and statistics management. So the model, if you like, was able to replace or was reallocate the resources and use them for activities that would benefit the development of internet as a whole. So this is a committee which doesn't have a legal entity as such. It's just set up. It's an informal. It's a civil association. It's private, but it's not for profit. And it's a double act, if you like, because which has done a lot of good things. One of the good things, which is extremely technical, but it's very good for NIC, was a civil framework which was very much praised at the time, because ensured that internet would reach everybody. Because it's not just about censoring problems or resolving problems, but currently with the Data Protection Act, our structure seems to be good. It's technically okay because we've been in operation since '89. And we've managed to survive the pandemic without any problems. And I think that this relationship that we have allows us a very promising future for internet development in our country. What's the CGI made of? What's the management committee? How's it structured? I mean, congratulations. It's been around for ages, isn't it? As Damien said, the government participates, but it's not actually a government institution. The government's changed, and in fact, the institution remains. They're using the funds from .br to fund investigation, participate in international events, and to help events like ours as well. So how is it made up, Percival? Which entities are involved? How are the members renewed? How are they elected? Percival, you're muted. How can you say that Portuguese? Okay. Can you hear me now? Hello, everybody. Like Demi, I'm going to try and speak something approaching Spanish. The CGI. Well, currently we have 21 members. 9 from the government, and the others are from civil society organizations. The governance in Brazil, I think it's important that in order to understand this multi-sectoral model, we have to understand the history behind it. I want to talk about the UN conference, the UN 1990 conference in Rio de Janeiro. This is a specific event. At the time, we had organizations from all over the world who were seeking to develop technological IT networks. And they looking at this from the point of view of communication. There were some initiatives at the time. The Association for Science Development in the 1990s. But in Brazil, with the announcement of the law of 2002, we started to move towards providing more opportunities for stakeholders. In fact, this was the first time at which an intergovernmental conference opened its doors to stakeholders from civil society. The Earth Summit was the first international conference of the UN with a multi-sectoral focus. What does this mean? The idea is that all sectors from civil society are able to participate. At the time, many UN meetings were restricted to government participation. Today, many of the UN meetings are multilateral rather than multi-sectoral. From our point of view, society was very satisfied with this opening, but most civil entities didn't have the resources to travel to Rio de Janeiro. So how could they participate? The event that is how the first UN conference was born, with a space for internet. The NGOs were able to participate remotely. Many people from different sectors got involved because they were looking at a new governance model. Gosh, damn phone. Oh, this darn phone. Anyway, the sector was able to take part. The setup of the CGI was born from the many challenges faced, and creative solutions came up pretty quickly. And eventually we were able to overcome the difficulties. The 1992 law, which was amended this year, showed us the way forward to implement reality throughout. By June, in April 1992, it was possible to use the IP scheme. So, Demi, it's not just a question of police. The government was adopting the law about platforms, and after the departure of different members, we were able to buy different kinds of equipment. And Demi was the one who implemented much of the Echo 92 networks. One of the results of the creation of CGI has been to increase the cooperation of different sectors and multi-stakeholder groups. This is reflected in today's results. And I think that the initial framework created is one of the reasons why this is working. This explains why the multi-stakeholder model is so successful. So how do you elect the members of the committee? For example, civil society. Oh, hang on a minute. The government indicates who it's going to select from its ranks, the ministers and such like. And members of the civil society are from the business sector, from civil society representatives. We have elections every 3 years for members. And how long is each person in office? 3 years. The mandate is for 3 years. So we have a new round of elections every 3 years. Any questions from the students for our Brazilian friends? Today it's very quiet. Over here. A question from our students. Let's see if our online students have any questions. I'm a Brazilian journalist. I've been living in Uruguay for the last 10 years. So I'm going to ask my question in Spanish. I don't know if this is more an issue of the multi-sector in terms of what we were saying earlier, but I'm quite struck by the implementation of the consumer defense law as it applies to electronic commerce. And I want to know how CGI accompanied that process. How can this be exploited in terms of cybersecurity? We already have a consumer defense code, which is pretty advanced. How can it be applied? How was it applied at the beginning of internet when e-commerce was quite a strange beast? And now you see the EU discussing measures which in Brazil have been applied for a very long time. So this thematic cross-sectoral aspect seems to be very relevant to the multi-sector aspect. I can try to answer, but I'm a bit restricted by my time here. Go ahead. First, I think that we should be careful about internet and applications that are online. For me, e-commerce is commerce. It's not internet. Internet enables this commerce to take place. So trade laws apply to e-commerce because it's commerce. In the same way that social organizations set up on internet can be good or not, but that's not internet. Those are resources which are applied on internet. We have 300 people working at the NIC, and then we have other people working beneath that. We provide rules and regulations about how to handle cybersecurity problems, how to migrate to Wi-Fi 6, how to use different resources on your own resources, how to use DNSS, and structures which underpin what we see today. It's not just one approach to internet, but when we talk about regulating internet, we're not talking about IP addresses, which are basically internet, but you regulate commerce, so that's commerce. It's not about regulating internet. If the commerce is housed on internet, that's not actually relevant per se. It's commerce. I just wanted to clarify that. We, as the basic structure, do not intervene in this area, the regulation of trade per se, but the CGI does have 10 principles which we implemented in 2009. This is when the management committee established 10 principles which must be respected, which have to do with data privacy, cultural and respect for diversity, So obviously we're not going to prohibit people from using internet. Well, what we're trying to do is work within applications and rather than within internet per se. We have our management committee, which has principles, which it is implementing. These are generic. These are not specific to the moment. They are logical principles, as we say. And what we're doing is trying to maintain the physical structure of internet exchange points, measurements, and data and statistics, which are things that function independently. So you're more focused on network stability rather than things that work within the red. What advice would you give us, as here we have people from all over the world, including Africa, Asia, North America, and Europe, beyond the Latin Americans, who are the majority? What advice would you give countries to set up a national management committee? How can we do this successfully? what do you think are the success factors of your management committee that we could copy in other countries, for instance, in Argentina, when we don't have one? What do you think have been the factors that have brought about the success of the CGI in Brazil? I think that one of the important things about the CGI is to act as a steering committee for proposals pushed through committee, which, as very often legislation does not take into account the real structure of internet. And one of our roles has been to create a civil framework in the context of a law, and also ensure that this law properly manages internet resources, that doesn't counter the basic principles of openness, inclusiveness, which internet aims to achieve. So one of the key roles of the committee is to suggest rules and comment on draft bills so that everything is more or less aligned with the technical realities of internet, so that they don't end up approving things which end up causing more damage than benefits. So this is something that we are doing, as well as obviously good practices and good behavioral practices. We are an active stakeholder participating in the development of legislation. And we also comment on specific draft proposals when they seem to be very divorced from reality. And we're trying to ensure that they get worked on properly so they really reflect what we expect from an open and inclusive internet. Thank you, Demi. Percival, I think that first, as Demi said, the concept that internet as a free place should be the basis for innovation. Infrastructure should be the most simple possible. Everything done upon this infrastructure should not in any way harm or interfere with it. The more agreements there are, the more cooperation between parties mean the better prospects for a more inclusive and stronger internet. So having this multi-stakeholder model means that we have this facility, if you like. More people participate, the stronger it becomes. And the more we strengthen the way in which we build internet on the basis of agreements and cooperation. It's not just about the government or the private sector. There has got to be a fluid two-way collaboration between all the actors. And there have to be as many actors as possible. Otherwise, those that are marginalized cannot contribute. And obviously, they're not going to reap the benefits of internet. Well, I would like to thank both of you. For those of you who don't know the CGI, I encourage you to investigate. It's a very successful model. It's a multiple stakeholder model. We've been talking a lot about that, but actually, in reality, it's quite difficult to pull off. And there aren't many countries in the world that have developed a successful model such as Brazil. I have visited the headquarters of NIC and BRE. Oscar, do you remember? We went together in Sao Paulo. He's been lots of times. Our own windsurf. We have a windsurf from Brazil and a windsurf from Argentina, and obviously a virtual windsurf as well. And they have all the technology you could possibly imagine. It's a fantastic place. We've been working with the ITU, and one of the hardest words to incorporate into documents is the word multi-stakeholder. Countries simply wouldn't accept that concept in terms of including it in a document, like Russia or Saudi Arabia. They find it really difficult because they don't tend to include other sectors that aren't governmental sectors, and they don't want them involved in a broader discussion. Indeed, that is true. So I'd like to thank you very much. The support that you provide to the school is something that we appreciate very much. I admire you immensely, actually, as Adrienne was saying, first and second homes. I don't know if I would call Brazil my second home, but I certainly love it very much. Love Portuguese. I did study Portuguese and I do speak it, and I love the culture and the music. I admire everything that you're doing. Big applause for Demi and Percival.
Yep.
And hopefully, I look forward to seeing you in person in the future conferences. Thank you very much. Greetings from Adrián, from Oscar Mesano, and the local students that are in person and those that are online. Thank you. Goodbye.
Demi está em Portugal.